Hey everyone, what's going on? If you're new to this YouTube channel, what I talk about is how our mainstream media, our sports leagues, our told history, it is all done by a certain script. And if you understand ancient knowledge practices such as astrology and Kabbalah and Gematria and many other pieces to this, but if you understand the way that this old world knowledge works, you can get a way better understanding of what is to come within the mainstream media and just a better understanding of what this world is truly about. And for a number of months, clear back in March, and actually way back in last November, I've been following this theme that I have noticed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I mean, think about how old this TV show and this movie are. It's pretty random for me to even notice this pattern with this film, but we recently got the death of this guy, Rutger Hauer, or however you pronounce his name, and they told us he was the guy from Blade Runner, which he is, and I'd never seen this movie before, and when I watched the movie, I was like, dude, that is the guy from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So on July 19th, this guy from he's the lead vampire named Lothos in the film Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So he dies, and then a few days later, we get the Gilroy Garlic Festival shooting, right? And think about garlic in regards to vampires. And I'll explain how this is all synced up here in a second. But if you're new, please go to the description of this video and check out some links so you'll understand more of what I'm saying. I'll leave a link to this playlist where I talk a lot about what is going on. I'm also going to recap in this video. So let me do that right now. Way back in November, let's see if I had a post pulled up for it. Clear back on November 22nd, there was this pointless article in the mainstream media that had to do with Sarah Michelle Gellar, who was Buffy the Vampire Slayer on the TV show, and how she wore some sexy lingerie. And I thought, what is the point of this, Especially, there was a story just a couple days before about David Arquette being in a bloody death match. And David Arquette was in the film Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He was Luke Perry's best friend, and his name was Benny. He was the character where he got turned into a vampire, and so on. So I thought, there's got to be something going on with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And in this practice of coding numbers into words and phrases, if you write out Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it just so happens to equal 310. And right around the same time, there was also a story about a 310-mile dust storm that was going on in Australia, I believe it was. Right? So I was like, the number 310, how interesting. And when I looked up Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I noticed that the first episode just so happened to air on the date of 310. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer equals 310. Also, there's another cipher within this called Francis Bacon that is important to this year because it's a pig year and a number of other things. But in that cipher, if you write out Buffy's name on the TV show, it's Buffy Summers. That also equals 310. So then on March 4th, we got the death of Luke Perry. So let's type this out really quick. 11/22/2018. Luke Perry just so happened to die 3 months and 10 days after this post. And I was like, what are the odds? I mentioned David Arquette in this post, and I talk about the connections to Buffy the Vampire Slayer and how it might have something to do with Luke Perry and whatnot. And then Luke Perry ends up dying 3 months and 10 days later, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer equals 310, and so on, right? And what else was interesting is that same day that Luke Perry died, we got a story about Corey Feldman defending Michael Jackson for this new movie that came out called, I think it was called Leaving Neverland. And I started thinking Neverland and the Lost Boys from Peter Pan, and Corey Feldman's in that movie, The Lost Boys, which is also a vampire movie. And I was like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Lost Boys, there has to be something to this. And of course, when you look up Corey Feldman, he's known for the two Coreys. Look at when Corey Haim died. The other Corey, he died on the date of 3/10 of all days. And from previous information, I had documented how Corey Feldman had been running this child pornography campaign called the Indiegogo, I'm trying to spell it here, campaign. That equals 310. So, I knew there was something important to this number 310. Then on the date of 310, we got that Ethiopian airline crash that was synced up to their former ruler, Haile Selassie, who is known as the Lion of the Tribe of Judah. And that plane was going to Kenya, or was coming from Kenya, which is where the Lion King was set. The setting for the Lion King was based on Hell's Gate National Park that is in Kenya. And then Haile Selassie, that ruler, he was born on the first day of Leo, which is a lion. Also, we had the new Lion King that came out on the date of 7/19, which is also just so happens to be the same day that this guy died, Lothos from the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And we talked about how it's all synced up to this date of August 10th this year, because on August 10th this year, it is what is called World Lion Day, during the time of Leo, the lion. I don't want to get too far off topic, but this guy who's also known for being in the movie Blade Runner, that also stars Indiana Jones here, Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford, he's in that movie, what is it? I can't remember what it's called. Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Ethiopia is important to the Ark of the Covenant, which that movie is important to, because they say that they have the Ark of the Covenant, and we had the death of Nipsey Hussle, who actually his father comes from the region just north of Ethiopia where the Ark of the Covenant is supposedly held. And that's why it was important that the Rams were in the Super Bowl, because the Rams are important to Moses, who brought in the age of Aries, which is a ram. And, he led them to the land of Canaan. He wasn't there, but then they took down the walls of Jericho, which is important to Donald Trump and all of the wall symbolism. Donald Trump's wall just got approved with $2.5 billion, Trump 25, Pence 25, and so on. A lot more. I've made previous videos on it, but just know that that is a really big, important thing that is connected to all of this. And anyway, back to this 310 stuff. So I knew there was something important to 310. I knew there was something important to the movie The Lost Boys, because Corey Feldman, being in the mainstream media, defending Michael Jackson on this same day that Luke Perry died. And I went back and I'd never seen the movie The Lost Boys 2 or The Lost Boys 3. So I figured, I'm going to watch The Lost Boys 2 since I've never seen it. And when I watched that movie, I noticed that the vampires, they do this distinct whistle in the movie after they kill somebody. It's just this slowed down, weird, darker version of the song called In the Hall of the Mountain that was written by this guy, Edvard Hagerup Grieg. And let's look at his name in Gematria. Edvard Hagerup Grieg. Hit equals 310. And he wrote this song for a play that came out called Peer Gynt, I believe it was. Peer Gynt. If you look that play up, it came out on the date of 2/24, which is the day that leaves 310 days in the year. And I mentioned how it was that same whistle that was in this movie I recognized it from this TV show that my daughter loves on Netflix called Troll Hunters. And that Peer Gynt play, it takes place in the Norwegian area, and it involved something to do with trolls. So I knew there was something to do with trolls. And then, of course, in May, we get this story about Buffy the Vampire Slayer getting trolled death threats. Also, the creator of the troll doll, when I looked him up a long time ago, and Wikipedia has since changed it, which makes no sense whatsoever, but when I looked up that guy, he died 3 months and 10 days after or before his birthday. So I knew there was something important to trolls, right? And also with the Lost Boys stuff, that movie also stars Kiefer Sutherland, whose dad is Donald Sutherland, who plays Merrick in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He's Buffy's trainer and so on. So it made me think of back in 2017, I was following this theme with Marilyn Manson and how it was connected to Stand By Me and a bunch of other things. In the media, we got a story about Wendy Williams collapsing dressed up as the Statue of Liberty, but the guest on her show that day was Jerry O'Connell, who was the fat kid from the film Stand By Me. And we also had a story about Corey Feldman and the child porn stuff, Hollywood porn stuff. That was really big in the media around that time. And Wendy Williams collapsed on Halloween, which was important because River Phoenix, another kid who was in the movie Stand By Me, he died on Halloween. And there was a story of Rose McGowan, who had once dated Marilyn Manson. And she was big with the whole, whatever it was, the Me Too movement stuff that was going on within the mainstream media right around that same time. And the interesting thing about her was she was in this cult called the Children of Men that River Phoenix and Joaquin Phoenix and whatever were, they grew up in. There was this cult called the Children of Men, or Children of God is what it was. So I wondered if there was something important to Will Wheaton or also Kiefer Sutherland, considering they were also two major stars in the movie Stand By Me. And a few days later, Will Wheaton just so happened to be on the new Big Bang Theory, and he hadn't been on that TV show for over a year. Over a whole season, he hadn't been on the show. The next episode of the Big Bang Theory had Will Wheaton, the main character basically from the movie Stand By Me. And then 3 days later, we got the Sutherland Springs church shooting, and Will Wheaton was in the mainstream media talking about how people prayed, but people still died. So praying, didn't do anything to solve these shootings that are going on, right? So Will Wheaton and Kiefer Sutherland both come up within the mainstream media or something connected to them. What are the odds? Kiefer Sutherland, then the Sutherland Springs church shooting. Then later in May of 2018, we got the season finale of The Big Bang Theory where Sheldon married Amy. And of course, they bring on the character of Sheldon's brother, who was played by none other than Jerry O'Connell, the fat kid from the movie Stand By Me. What are the odds of that, right? So I knew there was something important to The Big Bang Theory with how all of this goes. And I was following The Big Bang Theory because of this synchronicity I had with at the bar Cheers, and then a few days later we got the story about The Big Bang Theory surpassing the TV show Cheers. Let me find it here. I'll find it one sec. It's right here. So basically what happened, I was at the bar DJing at this bar called Cheers, and I came back and looked at my computer, or my friend had texted me about what days I had open to have a band gig, because I'm in a band with him. And when I went to Facebook to look at some of my messages to see if I had any DJ gigs lined up that would conflict with these band gigs, the first post that came up was one that was from 2 days before that was about the football player Clay Matthews. And the funny part about it was just behind me was this giant thing of Clay Matthews on the wall at the bar Cheers. And of course, Clay Matthews equals 150. He played for the Green Bay Packers that equaled 150. The town I was in, Dow City, Iowa, equaled 150. And there's also this other big sign up on the side there, said the 150th, because they were celebrating their 150th year of being a town, right? And I was also DJing for that. So I knew there was something important to Cheers. And a few days later, we get this story about The Big Bang Theory breaking Cheers for having the most aired episodes or whatever it is, 276. And there was a big thing with The Big Bang Theory is Sheldon's favorite number being 73, which is really important to pi. And that's why we got the death of Stephen Hawking on the 73rd day of the year, which is also Pi Day, 314, right? And I'll explain more about that later. But Leonard on the show, he says, we get it. 73 is the Chuck Norris of numbers. And would you believe when you look up Chuck Norris, look when he was born. Chuck Norris was born on March 10th. And to top it off, on the final episode of The Big Bang Theory this year, there was a running joke about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Raj was sitting on the airplane. They were going to wherever it was, Sweden. I can't remember what the exact thing was. Sheldon had won the Nobel Prize or something like that. And they were going to Sweden, I think, where he had this conference. And on the airplane, Raj was sitting next to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who ended up being his date to this conference. And Sheldon even stops in the middle of his speech and says, "Is that Buffy the Vampire Slayer?" I mean, what are the odds that Buffy the Vampire Slayer would be on the Big Bang Theory's final episode? Especially when she's going with Raj, who is a voice in the film of the movie Trolls that came out in 2015. The date that this episode aired, too, was on 5/16, which was this side theme that I had been following, all because of synchronicity stuff. I was at work one day, and there's this guy who looks like John C. Reilly, and I know him, and we've joked about this forever. And I saw him for the first time in a long time, and I went and looked at my cell phone a little bit just after that or whatever, and the first thing that was on Facebook was a video of Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly on the movie Step Brothers when they're doing that video like I'm on a boat. And I thought, what are the odds? I see this guy for the first time in a while. He looks like John C. Reilly. Then the first thing that comes up on my phone is a deal about John C. Reilly. And when I looked up that guy's name in Gematria, it equaled 516. And when I looked up John C. Reilly's name in Gematria, it equaled 516. And previously in February, on February 15th, I got a YouTube strike on an old video that, I mean, the video had been out since like 2011. So why would they give it a strike out of nowhere? And it was showing me a bunch of stuff with Saturday Night Live, which Will Ferrell was on. And I had this other synchronicity at my friend Cody's house that was connected to Jimmy Fallon, who was on Saturday Night Live. And on the date of 2/15, that was important because we got that Aurora shooting. And I talked about how Saturday Night Live equals 215 in Gematria, and that date was 2/15, and Wayne's World is set in the fictional town of Aurora, Illinois. And I mentioned how, Mike Myers was on Saturday Night Live, and also how Dana Carvey had portrayed Ross Perot, and then Ross Perot ends up dying later on in July this year. But moral of the story, I'm just pointing out, there was a side theme that was going on with this date of 5/16, and I knew there was something important that was going to happen on the date of 5/16 that I was supposed to see. And another interesting thing that happened on this day was that the band Slipknot from Iowa released this song called Unsainted. And just want to point out, they released the song on 5/16. And I've been talking about Slipknot since 2015, but the theme came back up back in last October and November when Kanye West went to the White House. I don't want to re-explain it all, but Kanye West went to the White House, and it was important to a lot of stuff that I was talking about with 2015, and Corey Taylor, the lead singer of the band Slipknot, calling out Kanye West, and much more. I'll leave a link to that playlist as well. It's long, but you have to watch these to fully understand what I am saying. But it had to do with the song Bohemian Rhapsody that Kanye West sang at Glastonbury that year, 2015. And the same day they announced that they released tickets for Slipknot playing at the Iowa State Fair on August 10th this year, they released the film Bohemian Rhapsody, right? Also, the Iowa State Fair in 2015 was important to Donald Trump because Donald Trump said that he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair when he was in a helicopter. And that was a major story that was going on in August of 2015. And we also got the death of Morgan Freeman's granddaughter, and they showed her at the Batman premiere with Morgan Freeman. We got the death of a guy who dressed up like Batman and went around to hospitals. We got the death of Batgirl, Yvonne Craig, whose birthday just so happens to be 5/16 as well. She died. And we also got James Holmes, the Batman shooter, sentenced. He got sentenced or whatever in August of that year, right? So there's this big Batman theme. And think about the Aurora shooting that happened on the date of 2/15 that was pointing me to this date, right? The Aurora, think about the Aurora Batman shooting that happened in 2012. Donald Trump said that he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair, that Slipknot is going to be playing on August 10th this year for the first time ever. And what else is interesting is, let me find my video about Buffy being trolled, because, or my post here. In this post where Christy Swanson was being trolled, one of the things was she says, "And you are Batman," right? Why would she say that, right? You are Batman. And the person that she's getting trolled with was Dean Cain, who's known for portraying Superman, of all people, right? Superman. And in 2015, in August 15th, that is the same day that Donald Trump said he was Batman and the helicopter at the Iowa State Fair. But that was Ben Affleck's birthday. Ben Affleck, who was later in the film Batman versus Superman, right? Keep in mind the big story earlier this year too was the new Batman is going to be the guy who plays Edward from the movie Twilight, right? A vampire, a guy known for being a vampire is going to be the new Batman of all things, right? What are the odds? Plus, Ben Affleck's birthday is the same day that Napoleon was born in history, which is the 227th day of the year. And I've been talking about August 10th, which is the day Slipknot's playing at the Iowa State Fair this year. And Slipknot's also playing, the only band they're playing with is this band who is French. Think about Napoleon here. This band, it's a French band, and they're the only band that's playing with Slipknot at the Iowa State Fair on August 10th. August 10th this year is the 227th anniversary of the fall of the French monarchy. And in Gematria, if you write out French monarchy, it equals 227. If you write out French Revolution, it equals 227. The French Revolution began because of an assembly of the Estates General. That equals 227. And think about how Napoleon was born on the 227th day of the year. And in 2016, on the 227th anniversary of the storming of the Bastille, we got the Nice, France van attack. And Sylvester Stallone was even there, and the media had an article with him holding up a deal, or they had firecrackers behind his head that looked like the Statue of Liberty, which was reminding me of all the Stand By Me stuff and so on in 2017 with Wendy Williams collapsing and so on. But think about France, too, in regards to the Illuminati that was founded by Johann Adam Weishaupt. That equals 310 in Gematria. And he founded the Illuminati 3 months and 10 days with the end date before the date of August 10th. Iowa is also important to France. The Iowa flag is even a tribute to the flag of France. They were part of French Louisiana. Des Moines is named after the Des Moines River that was, a French name. So it's like there's a lot of stuff that is connected to France with all of this. Also, we've recently got stories about Osama bin Laden's son, and then we got the story of the al-Zawahiri guy, right, having a heart problem. All synced up by the numbers. I won't mention all that, but just know that Osama bin Laden's birthday is the date of 3/10, and he died 3 months and 10 days before this other big date that we've been talking about is August 11th. And a big reason I bring all that up is because a big thing with Slipknot is the state of Iowa, right? And Slipknot has the album called Iowa, which honestly I really like this album too, you know. Out of all the Slipknot albums, this was always one of my favorite ones, as I think a lot of people really like this album from Slipknot. But notice that this album came out just before 9/11/2001. So just want to point that out. Another reason that I know that Slipknot is important is because earlier in May, we got this story about, let me find it here, Guantanamo Bay. Earlier this year, we got the story about this plane crash in Florida that went into the St. Johns River. And when you look that up, and then just after that, we got a story about the helicopter crash in the Hudson or something, right? So think about Donald Trump and the helicopter, but Florida equals 310, and the St. Johns River, when you look it up, it just so happens to be 310 miles long. St. Johns River, 310 miles long, right? So we get this plane coming from Guantanamo Bay that crashes in the 310-mile long St. Johns River in Florida that equals 310. And the next day, the horse in the Kentucky Derby named Maximum Security got disqualified. And think about this plane crash the day before that was coming from Guantanamo Bay, a maximum security place, right? That's how the mainstream media does this stuff all of the time. But I thought that there might be something important to the movie Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay. And when I was watching this movie, let me find it here. There's a scene where after Doogie Howser dies, they steal his car, and, well, it won't bring it up, but they find this creepy mask, and this creepy mask just so happens to be one of the members of Slipknot's mask, named Chris Fane, or however you pronounce his name. That's a Slipknot mask in this movie, right? And this was before Slipknot releases their new single, and then Slipknot's Gabrielle Crahan, or however you say her name, she ended up dying a couple days after they released their single on 5/16. But when you look at this guy, for some reason it's not loading my pictures, but when you look him up, his birthday is the day that leaves 310 days in the year. And he just actually got kicked out or left Slipknot, and he filed a lawsuit against them on Pi Day, 3/14. And then he was later dismissed from the band, and he's no longer with the band, right? So just remember, he did this lawsuit on Pi Day, and the Big Bang Theory stuff was all about pi and whatnot. Let's go back to this thing here, and let's bring up these Francis Bacon ciphers that I've been saying are important because of a number of things. This year is a Chinese pig year, and also think about France, you know, Frank Baconus, Francis Bacon. I'll leave a video in the description that explains more about this because it has to do with this synchronicity I had with the Umbrella Man and Mary Poppins just around the time of all this Cheers stuff that was important to the Big Bang Theory and whatnot. But to prove what I'm saying, we got this major story about the Big Bang Theory surpassing Cheers on the date of 3/28 this year. And look what the Big Bang Theory equals in these ciphers here. Notice in Frank Baconus, it equals 328. And also another big thing that's been going on with this show is Young Sheldon, that equals 328, and the reverse of, you know, Frank Baconus. Also, if you write out 3.14, that equals 328. We also had the death of Stephen Hawking, remember, on Pi Day, and Stephen William Hawking equals 328. And the interesting thing about this is that Stephen Hawking also, the last episode that he was ever on of the Big Bang Theory was called the Hawking Excitation. That equals 314, reminding us of pi, that is 3.14. And that episode aired 3 months and 14 days before his birthday, Then he died on 3/14, which was the 73rd day of the year, which is Sheldon's favorite number, which is the Chuck Norris of numbers. Notice how Chuck Norris equals 314 like pi. And would you believe that if you write out 73 as words, it also equals 314, just like pi. Also, in regards to the pig year, remember how Slipknot has the song called Gematria, the killing name? And then the only person who's been in the band who died was Paul Gray, who was known as the Pig, right? Look at his full name in Gematria, Paul Dedrick Gray. His name equals 328 in this cipher, the number that's connected to the Big Bang Theory, the number that is connected to pi. Think about Chris Fain filing the lawsuit on Pi Day. In that song, Gematria, the killing name, the opening lyric is 12/8/73. That was all I got, and now it got me, or something like that. 12/8/73. Corey Taylor is listing off his birthday, right? 12/8/73. 73, just pointing that out. But look, if you go from August 10th to Corey, I keep wanting to say Corey Feldman, but Corey Taylor's birthday, 3 months and 28 days. Also 120 days, which is interesting because Illuminati equals 120 and so on, you know. So does Kanye West. 120. Remember how he had that feud back in December that was all connected to France and the yellow coats or whatever it was? Aubrey Graham is Drake's real name. His name equals 120. And it was like 120 days after his birthday and a bunch of other stuff, you know? So think about the Illuminati that is connected to France. And think about this number 227 that's connected to France. 22 divided by 7 is also pi. If you take 22 and divide it by 7, you get 3.14, which equals pi. That's also why we got the death of, what was his name? Leonard Nimoy, who, can't remember what year he died, but that was who Sheldon really looked up to on the Big Bang Theory as well. Leonard Nimoy died on the date of 2/27, right? The number connected to pi. And I think his name, I can't remember what it was, Leonard Simon Nimoy or something like that. Can't remember what it was. There was whatever his name was, there was a cipher, maybe it was satanic, where his name equaled 810, like August 10th. Another interesting thing is that Christy Swanson, the girl who plays Buffy on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, she's currently 49 years old, and the 49th prime is 227, right? And if you write out 22 divided by 7, even, 22 divided by 7 equals 314, just like pi. It really makes me wonder, too, if the word pig is important to all of this, because pig is pi with a G, right? Pi and then the G, which is important in Freemasonry, geometry, God, and so on, right? And G is 33 in Francis Bacon, which is important to Freemasonry and foundation and the 33 vertebrae, right? Just want to point this out again. 33 and Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon supposedly wrote the King James Bible. That's why we got the Boris Johnson story, you know, him becoming the prime minister and whatnot, because his birthday is the same day as the anniversary of the real King James's birthday. That's why LeBron James was important to a number of things with the Cavaliers, who are followers of King Charles, winning the NBA Finals on the real King James's birthday, all synced up to Donald Trump winning the rigged selection. Another thing that's interesting too is this big number, 310 that I've been talking about. Notice what it equals in the reverse Francis Bacon. It equals 314. Yet again, another connection to pi. If you go back to November, I'll leave a link to this video in the description too. I talked all about how the number 11 was super important to this year. And if you write out pi, pi also equals 11. So there's definitely something really important to it. It's 55 in reverse Francis Bacon. And, you know, God also equals 55. And so does Satan. Satan equals 55. And they also both equal 10, which is important to young Sheldon, who starts the, what is it? The Church of Binary, right? Binary is ones and zeros, and he meets the number 10. And it says it's not the 10 Commandments. It says it's actually binary code. Ones and zeros, right? If you add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 10, it sums to 55. Also, the word numerology equals 55. So heaven equals 55. It's definitely an important number. Also, another interesting thing with all of these pi connections and talking about how a lot of this syncs up to synchronicity and whatnot and these weird things that happen. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer growing up was one of my favorite movies for whatever the reason. I don't know why. I just remember a lot about that movie. It also has Ben Affleck in it. That was part of the reason I noticed the Batman stuff was because Ben Affleck, let me point this out really quick and then I'll come back to it. But Ben Affleck, let me find it here. He has a line in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer where he, I can't remember what the exact line is. I know I wrote it in here somewhere, but he gives the vampire the ball and he says like, take it. Or here, take it. That's his only line in the whole movie. So he's in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Notice the mascot is also the pig or the hogs, right? And during the basketball game, they're running this play with the all-seeing eye, and the male and the female symbol and infinity. Like, come on. How are people so blind? How do people still think that this doesn't exist? Why are they putting stuff like this in movies from 1992 even? And it goes farther back than that, but just what is the purpose of this? How are people so blind to this, It's just so ridiculous that people can't see that. But moral of the story here, I went from the day Buffy the Vampire Slayer came out, which was 3 months and 10 days before my 10th birthday of all days, right? 3 months and 10 days. Also, I noticed this is the 314th day of the year, like pi. So I was born on the 314th day of the year. If you go to its mirror day, the day that leaves 314 days in the year, which is 2/21, just pointed out, it's also 3 months. Well, how did that work out? Oh, it's 2/20 is why. The mirror day, this is the day that leaves 314 days in the year. So 3 months and 10 days, right? So 3 months and 10 days separates these 2 days that are connected to pi. If you go to the day that leaves 310 days in the year, then, of course, it is 3 months and 14 days, right? Like pi. So I'll show you why I'm pointing out all this stuff with pi. Because pi is really, really important to this narrative that I've been following with France and August 10th and Slipknot and the Big Bang Theory and so on. It seems to be like the underlying meaning to all of it. Even the episode that the Big Bang Theory surpassed Cheers, it was on season 12, episode 21. 12 and 21. If you watch the Big Bang Theory, when Sheldon talks about the importance of the number 73, he says that it's important because its reflection, think about the reverse Gematrias and so on, is 37. And then the prime numbers for both of these numbers are also reflections, right? The 12th prime number is 37, and the 21st prime number is 73, right? So what are the odds that it surpasses Cheers, season 12, episode 21, 12 and 21, this number connected to pi. And it was also super connected to Penny on the Big Bang Theory, Kaylee Kuko, or however you say her name. But I've been documenting a lot of stuff about her over the years with 12 and 21. Even her birthday on the show is December 2nd, which can be written 2/12, a lot like 212. This story came out 212 days after, well, let's see here. I can't remember what I wrote in here. Her birthday on the show is that. In real life, she got married 212 days after her birthday. On the show, her and Leonard get married 2 months and 12 days before her birthday. And can't remember. There was something else with 212. I think the story came out 3 months and 28 days after her birthday. That's what it was. But just pointing out the 212 and so on. 212 is like a 21 and a 12, right? Reminding us of this important number, 73 and 37, both numbers that are important to pi. So now let's go back and look at the death of this guy right here, the guy Lothos. If you look this guy up, He died on the same day The Lion King came out, which I talked about. He also died at age 75, which is interesting because Buffy equals 75 and so on. Luke Perry, he died, I think, 75 days. We'll type it out really quick. I can't quite remember. I thought I put it in here, but maybe not. I think Luke Perry died 75 days after Christy Swanson's birthday. Yeah, he did. 75 days. So Luke Perry dies 75 days. The word Buffy equals 75. This guy dies at the age of 75, but notice he died 212 days after Christy Swanson's birthday, and his full name equals 212. This big number that's important to pi, right? It was also 4 months and 9 days after the date of 310, which is interesting. 49th prime, 227, so 131 days. With the exceptions, Buffy the Vampire Slayer even equals 131. Luke Perry equals 131. You know, so there's that guy. He dies in connection to this 212 stuff. Then we get this Gilroy Garlic shooting festival, right? Or festival shooting. Right away. Right away, what stands out to me, garlic, vampires. You're going, what are the odds? You know, the guy from Buffy dies. It's another vampire connection. Just seems like the oddest place to shoot up a garlic festival of all places. If you read out Gilroy Garlic Festival, it just so happens to equal 310, just like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, just like Buffy Summers. I'll point it out really quick now. Buffy Summers, reverse Frank Baconis. Just like Gilroy, California. Gilroy, California equals 310 as well. And let me get back to this post. Got too many things pulled up. This Gilroy shooting just so happened to be 144 days before Christy Swanson's birthday. And 144 is an interesting date because, or a number, because if you sum the first 144 digits after the decimal of pi, they sum to 666. And that's why we had that recent death of Christopher Kraft, the NASA guy, that was all synced up to pi. And because NASA, their full name equals 666, and so on. It's all about cycles and circles and whatever else. But this guy dies 144 days, or the Garlic Festival shooting happens 144 days before Christy Swanson's birthday. Christy Swanson in Gematria equals 144. So does Garlic Festival. And Sarah Michelle Gellar, we'll look her up really quick. Sarah Michelle Gellar. Notice her birthday is April 14th, which in most parts of the world, they even write the date as 14/4, like 144, right? So I knew there was something important to pi yet again. If you look at Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show, it aired 144 episodes even, right? So the star is the girl who's born on 14/4. They air 144 episodes. It begins on the date of 310. There's also a spinoff called Angel that has this guy. And look when his birthday is. May 16th. And recently, you know, we've had all of that angel symbolism with the death of Tyler Skaggs, the Los Angeles Angel player. I talked a lot about how it was important to the Major League Baseball strike, where the final games were played on August 11th. And that was all synced up to Michael Jordan, who played baseball, who was synced up. I don't want to explain it all, but Michael Jordan played baseball under Terry Francona, the Indians coach that year, and who is the current Indians coach. But he played baseball for the Birmingham Barons that was coached by Terry Francona. And the Indians are important to the curse of Rocky Colavito, whose birthday is going to be on August 10th this year. And the last time the Indians had won a World Series was in 1948, and the MVP of that season was Lou Boudreau, who died on August 10th of 2001. So, and it was this big number that I've been talking about for 2 years. I've been following this date like crazy. All of a sudden, the date of August 10th and Tisha B'Av and August 11th blew up like crazy. that are seemingly more important to this year, and so on. So, moral of the story is that Michael Jordan retired from baseball on the date of 3/10. And I've followed this narrative with Zach LaVine, who now plays for the Chicago Bulls and whatnot, but his birthday is also 3/10, is connected to Teen Wolf and a number of other things. But the film Angels in the Outfield also came out just before the Major League Baseball strike, and Michael Jordan was really synced up to that Major League Baseball strike in 1994 and so on, but there's an angel theme, and Angel is the spin-off of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and this guy's born on 5/16, that important day that I was talking about, right? And what's interesting is if you go from his birthday to the garlic shooting, it's 73 days, right? Remember how 73 is important to pi, but also 2 months and 12 days. 21 and 12, right? The numbers that are important to pi. If you write out angel, it equals 73. Also, the 21st prime number is 73. Luke Perry also died 73 days before 5/16. And Christy Swanson's birthday is 7 months and 3 days after 5/16, right? So it's definitely important. Also, if you go from Sarah Michelle Gellar's birthday to the day of this garlic shooting, 3 months and 14 days. This number connected to pi, right? 314. Even funnier, too, in regards to all the Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff is, if you go back to the last video that I just did with Sam, we did this live stream. I talked about how I went to the Marilyn Manson concert, and on 220 or on 722, right? Or they could also be written as 22/7, like pi. And Marilyn Manson has been just super important to all this stuff. He was even really important to the stuff with JFK. And I talked about Marilyn Manson being really important to Charles Manson. It was right around the same time as the Stand By Me stuff, because he has that video called Coma White with Rose McGowan in it, who was his girlfriend at the time. And it had conflict with the airplane of like JFK, or I can't remember, JFK Jr. died in an airplane crash or something. And it was just after the Columbine shooting, but it was all about 10 days before and whatnot. And how interesting is it that RFK's granddaughter just dies 10 days before August 11th this year? But I'll keep that out of here. But I want to make a separate video, hopefully. But in this video, I talked about how I had synchronicity with the band Slayer. And I knew there was something important to the band Slayer, but I couldn't figure it out. And just think about it. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? It was all about Buffy the whole time. And I wasn't even putting it together. But Buffy is the Slayer. It makes so much more sense now when I think about it. That's why it was important to Slayer. But there's even an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer where there's this like evil priest guy towards the end of the season 7, episode 19, which reminds me of the day that Lothos died, right? But there's this evil priest guy. I've never really watched the show, but his like headquarters or something are in Gilroy, California. So I don't know, I just thought that was interesting that this show would even involve Gilroy, California. I've talked a lot about that priest stuff. A couple years back I was talking about the priest who might have molested me as a kid, and then he got busted for child molestation. His name was Father Fitzgerald. Then like a week later we got the USS Fitzgerald story in the mainstream media. That was all synced up to North Korea and a bunch of other stuff. But let's see what else I put in here. The next day after that live stream, Sam got out his phone, and this was the first article that popped up. Buffy the Vampire Slayer 1, shot will reveal all new Slayers. So he sent me this picture or whatever, and what are the odds, So hopefully that all makes sense, This same day we got this story too. We got a story about the Pink Lady Bandit on the loose. And if you go back clear to that first video that I even put out about Buffy and lingerie, right? I even mentioned how Pink was important, and David Arquette was born on the day that Pink was born. And last year, around the same time of the August 10th stuff, I was talking about how this pink symbolism was going on, how it was even connected to the death of Molly Tibbetts, who was the girl who got murdered in Iowa. And we just recently got this story about this kid who went to Florida and died on his honeymoon from Iowa. Let me find it here. And of course, this kid went to the same high school as Molly Tibbetts. His name was Dalton. Molly's boyfriend was named Dalton. And they were only like a year apart. And it was a small school. There's no way they didn't know each other. What are the odds? Also, this kid drowned. Like, come on, he drowned. If you go back and look at my videos here, let me find the playlist here. There's a whole thing I have where I talk about pink and drowning. Oh, where did I put it? Maybe I passed it. Yeah, the pink theme. And within this, I talk all about. It's interesting because Molly Tibbetts, all kinds of stuff, you know. I predicted Pink to sing the national anthem of Super Bowl 52 way before they even announced that Pink was going to be the singer of the national anthem. But all of this Pink stuff, it was all connected to a drowning theme in the Mighty Ducks and so on. And that date of 5/16 was important also to the Mighty Ducks because of Gordon Bombay coming out on the Jimmy Fallon show and a whole bunch more. So I know that what I'm talking about is absolutely important. It's super synced up to pi. I really feel like August 10th, if nothing big happens, we're going to learn something very important to this knowledge and, get a whole lot better at this knowledge. At least that's what I hope. You know, it reminds me a lot of 2016 when this happened with the Cubs and the Indians and so on. So funny, even when I was writing up, I never really do this, but I was bored at work and I was trying to organize all of these thoughts because there's a lot of stuff going on with it, and I was just bored at work, so I started writing down some notes and I grabbed a random piece of paper off the counter and I wrote all this stuff, and then later I realized that it had Scooby Doo on the back of it. And it's funny because, Buffy is the big thing in the TV show is the Scooby Gang that I mentioned in my original lingerie post, and also Sarah Michelle Gellar's in the movie Scooby Doo. So this TV show, I had synchronicity, or I didn't really have synchronicity with it, but I had synchronicity with Scooby Doo one time with my daughter Claire, and it had to do with the Fred symbolism that was connected to August 10th as well. And the night that I noticed that this had Scooby Doo on the back, I heard the TV show Three Below, which is a spinoff of Troll Hunters, and they mentioned Iowa. He's like, no, 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 I thought it was Iowa. He wanted a glorious Des Moines. And the only other two places they mention are Canada and Guadalajara. And I'm like, why Des Moines? What is the purpose of this? And the creator of the show, when I looked him up, it says he's born in Guadalajara and he has a residence in Canada, but I couldn't find anything to do with Iowa. So why did they mention Des Moines, Iowa? And it was part 2, episode 12, 212, right? The number connected to pi, connected to Sheldon's favorite number, 73. We also had the Brooklyn block party that got shot up the day before the Garlic Festival. And if you go back and watch my video where I talked about Buffy being trolled, I even mentioned how there might be something important to the movie A Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy and so on. I'm not going to re-explain all that, but I just think it's funny. The day before we get a shooting in Brooklyn, just before we get the Garlic one. We also then, that same day, we got a story about Ethiopia plants more than 350 million trees. So, a story about Ethiopia. This Garlic Festival, too, there's something important to red hair, which is funny because I don't so much have red hair anymore. I have a red beard, but, well, if I grow it out, I guess. But When I was a kid, I had super red hair. It was like super strawberry blonde. And for whatever the reason, over the years, it's a more of a lighter color now. But I just think it's funny. This garlic festival, this kid here, this kid in his Instagram post, he wrote, "Read Might is Right" by Ragnar Redbeard. And when you read about this guy, they don't know exactly who it is. It's a pseudonym, but it's Redbeard. It's actually believed to be this guy, Arthur Desmond, who had red hair and a red beard. And when you look up the name Gilroy, Gilroy actually means son of the servant of the red hair, right? So there's something important to red hair. And why this kid would write, read might is right, that has to do with red beard and red hair. I just find it funny that I have red hair, and as I was writing up this blog post, I looked up at the TV and it was this, and the Fairly Odd Parents, and it has these two redheaded people out there, This type of stuff happens all of the time. And it makes me think about Tisha B'Av, the third temple, the prophecy of the red-haired heifer, right? So there's definitely something important. Aurora was a red-haired goddess, if you remember. Think about Aurora with the Batman stuff. Aurora, the red-haired goddess. And Aurora was the sibling to Sol, which is funny because I think I talked about it in this live stream, but my boss gave me some beers called Sol one day, S-O-L, and I Snapchatted it and I said, proof that gingers do indeed have souls, because I have red hair and I was drinking a Sol. So there's something important to that, Aurora and whatever, but we'll leave the video there. I mean, there's always so much more I could talk about. I have so much synchronicity every day. But I just wanted to point out how it's definitely important to Pi. There's something going on with the upcoming week here. August 6th is really important too. And we just had the death of the Minnie Mouse girl, and I'm going to the JoJo Siwa concert. Minnie Mouse always wears the bow in her hair. It reminds me of JoJo Siwa, who's from Omaha, and so on. I won't explain all that, but August 6th has been really important as well. And Rocky Colavito will be 86. If you go back to October of last year, I have a huge video where I talk about Slipknot, Kanye West, and the World Series, and Rocky Colavito, and how 8-6 is really important. So August 6th is another day I've been watching for. So we'll leave the video there, I guess. Unless we want to, well, just another ridiculous story here too. We get a story of these two guys who survived the Las Vegas shooting, and they also survived the garlic shooting, right? And look at their names. Their names are, they're the Cook brothers. Try to find it here. Christopher and George Cook, right? At the Garlic Festival. And guess who they were with? Their friend Alicia Olive. I mean, give me a break, right? And the Las Vegas shooting happened 666 days before the garlic shooting. Once again, that number that's important to the decimals of pi, right? And also, the gun that this kid supposedly bought was in Nevada, reminding us of, the Vegas shooting and whatnot. So, just how stupid. It's what they do all of the time, and then people just eat it up and believe it, think it's all just a coincidence. Just get so tired of it. But we'll leave it there. We'll see what happens in the coming week or whatever, or coming rest of the year. See how it all plays out. Have a good one. Peace.